and welcome to Joseph's Model Railway and Toy Room. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, you don't need to follow, like, subscribe, any of that nonsense. I just put the videos out there where I can and have a whole bunch of fun doing so. Taco about a Loopy entrance? Yes, indeed. If I had a box of the popular cereal Fruit Loops, I would have put the box on my head. I didn't, and I thought, this beautiful taco hat seems to be perfect for the Loopy introduction of talking about the construction of the second loop, which is what this video is all about today. Now, in this particular video, we're going to go through, we needed to get our board cut and what we needed to do. It also features a little bit about what we need to do, some construction in the back, and we're going to squeeze in a little bit of extra magic. However, this isn't the complete situation, so it's not the final join up of track. That will be happening in a later video, of course. Let's just really appreciate at the moment that I'm pretty much just carrying on with the back line at the moment. That's just about now finished. However, we've just put our lovely cork down and we're actually out of cork, so I am just waiting on more cork to arrive, so that's currently where we are. The good news is we can carry on and get that track bed laid for what we need to do and make sure we've got our right inclinations. And the cork that you do see here is all being cut ready to go and will be featured ready to go with our station that's going to match up and what we need to do there with that platform that we talked about in an earlier video. So let's get our board out, start chopping it up and get some action happening and seeing what we can come up with in this particular video.
First thing is first, we need to come in and make sure we've got our measurements right. So once again, we'll bring the laser in, make sure we've got our center points where we need them, and we'll lay down a bit of 3rd and 4th radius track to give us a bit of a guideline. I'm going to whip the drill out, and while we've got the board out, we'll just put in our necessary holes in case we need to feed some wires up for lighting, track feeds, etc. Blow a few holes in here as necessary. Just take a moment here to appreciate that generally in the morning here, and even though we do have an overcast day, which is wonderful, our current ambient air temperature sits at about 34 degrees Celsius. Now, the smart thing to do in front of the shed where the shade would have been 3 hours ago is to make this cut on the plywood as necessary. Of course, life keeps happening, phones keep ringing and things need doing. So unfortunately, we're coming up to the middle of the day, but not to stress, we have a bit of cloud cover, so let's make the most of this, shall we? The Sydney Harbour Bridge. Well, half of it, actually, no, it's not. Let's get serious for a minute. What are we up to? Well, actually, it is the loop. Now, as you'll recall from a previous video, I was standing right here and we were constructing those custom LED arrangements for the underpass, for the motorway, expressway, freeway, what have you. Now, I have cut the board up ready for our 2-line configuration travel up on the loop, and everything has been ready to go. I'm just waiting on more cork at the moment. That's why we haven't got the tracks going down. But what I thought we might squeeze into this particular video is we're also going to do this back corner. There won't be a curved viaduct like there is way down the other end there. And as you can see, we are carrying on with the soda cans, and we're going to use what left up bits of cork we have now to carry on with the back line. And our little section of the Sydney Harbour Bridge is not that, of course, because if we take it down and put it down, we will have what we need here to create it. Now, I just want to point out, actually, with this section of timber, if we just have a quick look here, you'll notice that this is the typical color we want to see with some plywood, but it has been sitting in the carport for a while and actually naturally weathered like this. And I thought I may as well leave it because it saves me having to paint it. So we've also taken a couple of extra sections up here and we'll create a nice thing to let the curve. I'm also thinking I might just add a point in here where the line would obviously travel around and then the second one around. It's not actually going anywhere. I'm not going to automate the point. It will stay manual because it's mostly going to be set into the one position. But I think it's kind of a nice touch to carry on with an extra scene because we are planning on doing something. But here is where things get interesting, and I'd like to share a moment with you. I have just returned from the chop shop, and all these sections of timber are exactly what we need to do to lay into place, to lift it up, to match up with our back line, of course, including an entranceway here where we're going to have more dropper wires feeding in for the subsequent sections, including a series where I can still access underneath here if necessary for additional dropper wires. There won't be any here, and this is the section I want to talk to you about right now because I'm about to reveal a magic piece of hardware. Ta-da! Yes, indeed. What is it? Just a section of backline, I hear you say? Well, that is true. And as you'll be aware, when we've been constructing it, I've literally just come along with my ply and then just taken a series of screws and recessed them in to hold it. And I've been happy with that. With this next section, what I'm planning to do is I'm actually just going to be using standard Gorilla wood glue. We're not going to screw it down. And the reason why we're going to be doing that is the construction I need to be doing will be done at a time when little Junior will be fast asleep, and I don't necessarily need to be screwing it, and I want these in some specific positions, so I think the glue will do nicely and hold solidly there with a bit of weight on it. Except for this bit here, which has the screws, and as you can see, has had some glue, but not our standard Gorilla glue. This one has had not the wood glue, but the Gorilla glue that can bond everything, that expands and is quite strong for anyone that has used it. So why have we used that, but we also have screws in here? Seems a little bit of overkill. Well, it is. Let me explain why. So what's the big deal? It looks exactly the same as what we've been doing on the back line over here. And you're right, we put it in and it is the same. Actually, it's not the same. And I certainly want to take a special big thank you to YouTube user Fine Home Building, who makes mention to a previous user called Chris Green about a jig for tapering a cut that if you use a table saw, like you can see in this picture, and I apologize I didn't film the whole process because it was quite a complicated day and I didn't have time for the full setup. But what we managed to do is knock up a quick jig that allowed me to taper both of the legs accordingly. And now I think you can see what we're talking about. This is the height that we do need to achieve at this side, which again is just our plywood sitting on a piece of pine. But as we've come up chasing our incline from the loop, we haven't quite hit that height at the moment. So the difference between here and here is 11 millimeters or 1.1 centimeters. So sure enough, we've knocked this jig up, and if we slide it in, well, look at that. By the time that we've laid our cork on accordingly, we're going to do quite well on there. I might just tidy up with a little bit of a sand on there just to give it, but considering it's a bit better than I could have done with the freehand using the jigsaw or track saw, I don't think that's really too bad at all. Of course, that looks fantastic to the eye, especially for you and I. But the real test has got to be, as we've seen before, Charlie from Chadwick Model Railways has found this tremendous tool that a lot of us have started to use now. It's certainly about $50, I believe. You can purchase on Amazon or what have you. The Rise Pro is just a level, but the key thing is we do have the ability to come in and see our inclination. And all I'm interested in is to make sure that we're not exceeding higher than about a 2.5% gradient. Now, here we are, 1.73. I couldn't be happier with how that's turned out, and we're going to come up to the main line nicely, and everything's going to be smooth all the way down, so we won't be struggling with any of our locos or rolling stock. But it doesn't just stop there, unfortunately. What was the point with using this particular glue? I've screwed it down. Yes. With some particular plywoods, what happens, especially on bigger sheets and on thinner ones, over time they can bow slightly. Now this is a marine grade ply. Not that I'm recommending you should spend the money and go out and buy this particular type of ply. The important thing is this is what was left over with one of my wife's projects, so hip hip hooray for me. But the reason I'm saying it is that this particular section did have a slight little bow in it, and I do mean ever so slight. But the thing is, I don't need that happening. Enough that I would probably notice about probably a 10 to 20% adjustment from it. So I thought what we'll do, instead of just adding more screws to it, I'm going to take that glue down and clamp it and cure it properly. And now that is dead set perfect, and I have no complaints with anywhere this is going to travel. So ladies and gentlemen, I can't say enough, if you need to do it, make yourself a little jig to taper this accordingly. It beats having, as you can see on the rest of the loop, where I've obviously got gaps in between. Now that's solid and we don't have weight, but, and obviously because of the way we cut it to get it that nice fluid type of attack there, but I think this is a very, very good way to go. You want to spend the time and make a good cut and taper it, and you've got a table saw, put it to good use and come up with a jig, because the standard miter cut jig that comes with most table saws is really starting for anywhere between 30 to 90 degree cuts. So when you need to make this tiny little off of it, that's absolutely hopeless. But what I'm telling you is it can be done. It has been done. Check out the video. The link will be in my description. Well, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, thank you so much for joining me on this one. We're going to wrap it up here now. Of course, the loop isn't completely finished. We still need to get our cork happening around, and we still do need to get some track laid. We will come back to this probably in the video that will be the official final join of the track. I've noticed a slight correction that still needs to happen further down the line. So we'll come back to that accordingly. But at least our loop has now been cut now, and we at least do have the baseboard into place of how this is all going to link up again. Again, we are going to be slipping in our petroleum depot that we've worked out that will fit. Again, we need the sheets of cork. I actually do have the track ready to go. We just need cork to get laying down and carry on and finish it up accordingly. But as you can see, we're going to get these glued down. We'll clean these edges up a bit. I thought I'd just put it in so you visually can see this is basically how that's going to look. So you'll see a couple of train line coming back here into a head shunt, couple of tankers here and other oil storage over here, and then over to where we're going to have our two sidings where we can come in with hopefully some overhead pipe work and get those fuel tankers loaded up and looking marvelous. Of course, the two lines will carry on onto that loop, and away we go. So until the next one, stay safe. Toodles!